Are you ready to unlock the mysteries of your true self and harness your unique potential? Many of us struggle with understanding our purpose and navigating life's challenges. Often we feel stuck and overwhelmed. Today we have an incredible guest who can guide us through these hurdles using the insightful tool of human design. Anna Johnson-Hill is an expert in human design and a holistic and wellness coach. She has a background in academia, corporate experience, and transformative journeys in health and wellness. Anna has redefined how we can approach personal growth and self-realization. In this episode, we'll explore Anna's profound insights on human design, her personal experiences, and actionable advice to encourage daily self-improvement. Join us to gain a deeper understanding of your true self and learn how to turn life's obstacles into powerful growth opportunities. Welcome aboard The Nichole Show with host Nichole Hamilton. Our task is to educate, empower, and change lives. Join us for stories of resilience and rebirth. Honest talks that inspire and challenge you. Are you ready to make a move? It begins now. Welcome back, my beautiful souls. Today on The Nichole Show, we have the beautiful Anna Johnson-Hill. I met Anna, I don't even know, maybe 8 or so years ago through another beautiful coach and friend of mine, Ben Clark. But today I actually am super excited. We were just chatting off screen about like where this organic conversation is going to go. And Anna really loves working with women and entrepreneurs in regard to their passion and purpose. And so today I'm going to be able to ask Anna a few questions about her passion and purpose and dive into how do you even find that yourself. And even if you're a person, 9 to 5, or maybe just feeling a bit lost, like how do you find those, if you're not even familiar with those words, passion and purpose, what lights you up? So I'm super excited. My heart is full just even saying those words. So welcome, Anna, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm excited to dive into some deeper things today and to hear a little bit about your passion and purpose and what led you to the amazing work that you're doing and even this podcast and the way that you're here sharing your message with the world. So let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, for those that have been following me, in a nutshell, my biggest challenge was addiction in my 20s and 30s, and finding holistic and spiritual coaches led me to here. And there was quite a few aha moments across my journey, but the biggest one was the self-sabotage. Like, why the fuck am I unhappy? And what am I meant to do? I came from a marriage, children, corporate world, and nothing was lighting me up. I was really just, self-medicating. And when I got sober, which I always knew I wanted to do, and for those who want to know more about that, there's plenty in other podcasts that go deep on that. But for me, it was like, as soon as I hit a coach that went into, I'd worked with counselors and psychologists before, but as soon as I found a coach that was hypnotherapy and NLP, I knew that that was my place. I honestly thought I'd work with other drug addicts because it was so profound for me. I got sober straight away from one session. I met Ben along the way in NLP and hypno world, and I just kept studying. I just really wanted to help, and I started coaching clients and parents. But what I was doing was I was bringing all this personal development philosophies and making it games for my kids and teaching them at a young age, 4 and 7. Like, it started then. Like, how do I teach them to emotionally regulate, to be curious, ask questions? Well, what does that mean? Where does that go? And so I became a conscious parent and a lot more aware of the language and the behaviors that I was doing and what I was modeling. And that then led me to working with kids here in Adelaide. Like, my coach threw me in and I started working with kids. And in between, my business went up and down, divorce and change of, location and the rest. But when I worked with my own coaches, what lights me up is bringing these fundamentals and personal development philosophies and modalities to children. When they get it and they light up, or they pick me as their mentor or their person, I cry. I just tears of happiness. And it's such a really profound, beautiful place and space to work with kids. And when I was in my 20s, I only liked my own kids. I couldn't even, fathom, working in childcare or whatever else. And here I am now, like if you have a kid, like I'm gone. Like the adults can be by themselves. So I relabeled myself the kids coach and have spent the last 4 years really diving deep into that world and filling in the spaces and places that families and kids need it. And again, I went through another kind of death and rebirth and found that there was still some deep-seated unhappiness parts of me. And because I'd labeled and branded myself so heavily the kids coach, and I started denying my feminine, my pole dancing, my relationship, my different things, or not speaking about them, I realized that I was kind of masking there too. And that kind of developed the Nichole Show, because what people saw on social media is not the all of Nichole. And so the Nichole Show is quite therapeutic for me because I am talking about every single piece of me, and in just the hopes that somebody else doesn't feel so alone. Because if we're not truly looking at all parts of ourselves, we can't at a frequency run a business, be a good person, be a good human, be a good mother, be a good, person in a relationship. If you're not looking at all those parts, it's going to come up in shadows and bad choices, behaviors, or decisions. And so I'm super grateful because every time I come on with beautiful people like you teach me something and I get to unpack something more. And when it lands on other people's ears, like that's what I hope. I hope other people just don't feel so alone in what they're traveling or navigating through. So yeah, that's a little snippet of Nichole's journey.
Yeah, and what I love out of what you shared there, it was always the hardest moments, the moments where you noticed, and having the self-awareness as well, like right now I'm feeling unhappy, or right now I feel like I'm masking these parts of myself, that then there's this new like magic or miracle was created out of that. And so
Every time.
I feel like that's such an important piece, is like our own self-awareness of what is playing out for us right now.
Mm.
On a deep, like, it would be hard for anyone else to notice. It's only us, like by going really deep within, and noticing these patterns and habits or thoughts that we're having, or limiting beliefs, or the way that we're showing up that doesn't quite match with, the person we really want to show up as and become in this world. That it's like, okay, there's some darkness here, but that's really great. And actually phrasing that as like, oh my gosh, this is a really good thing, and not like shaming or blaming ourselves and being like, oh, I'm not doing well. But it's actually like, this is really good because I know on the other side of this is going to be that magic, that miracle, like the light that comes out of that. And so I feel like it's so powerful when we can look at all of those really hard times in our life. And of course, when you're actually in it, like that's the hardest part, is like being able to think that there is good in this happening. But if we can, as soon as we come across that challenge or that obstacle, and go, wow, this is really good. And I don't know right now what that magic or miracle is going to be, but having that certainty that on the other side of that there is going to be something great, it kind of like holds us through like that hard time, because we know on the other side there's about to be something new that's revealed.
Yeah, it is. It's really that death and rebirth process that continues to go in throughout our journeys. And yeah, if I didn't have the tools and the people like you guys in my life and mentors and coaches to reframe it for me, 100% I'd be stuck in my shit. I didn't know even at the beginning of this year when I was going through so many, burnouts and breakdowns with, money, relationships, finances, business, that this would all come out of it and I would feel, so refreshed and so new. But yeah, like you said, having that faith, having that awareness that things break down for a breakthrough is so powerful. I'd love to know what's led you then. What is your passion and purpose, and what are some of your darkest parts? Because I've seen you present and you do this beautiful human design, and you really do help people navigate some of their passions and purposes. But how did you even get to this point, and what were some of the parts that were hard for you to navigate?
Yeah. So I grew up in country town of Wagga Wagga, and I knew as I was growing up, I always just wished that I either lived by the beach or lived in a city. And because I was so far removed from that, and I had this desire that when I reached 18, I would move to a city by the beach. And it was so different to where I was at that point in time, and I really had to take myself out of my comfort zone and anything that I'd ever known before to drive by myself, pack all my stuff into the car, and drive to 4 hours away to another part of Australia. And when I was always a really like academic student, like I was always getting good grades, and I really valued that part of me that was so rational and so logical, and I really developed that side of my persona, and that served me so well when I was at uni, and I ended up doing 2 degrees and then my honours year, and then I started my PhD, and then I started teaching at university, and so I'm kind of going on this educational kind of track. But I was so in that like logical, rational, this is the next step, like mentality, that then I'm like, okay, well, the next step after this will be going into corporate. And I ended up getting like a really sought after job. There were 2,000 applicants for this job. And I went up to Sydney, I did an in-person interview, and I was there with doctors, rocket scientists, like all of these amazing people. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like this tiny fish right here. But I just showed up authentically as myself. And I even remember during the interview, there was a question that they asked, and I didn't know the answer, and I just started rambling and going off on all of these different tangents. And then I was like, sorry, can I start that one again? And then they were like, sure. And it was actually that moment where I had that self-awareness to be like, I'm not doing this right. I can do it better. That they reflected to me later on. That was the moment they were like, yep, this is the one. Like, this is who we want in this role. And so I feel like when you're just showing up authentically and you're not trying to like have that mask and try and show up better or than who you truly are, it actually connects with people on that deeper level. And so anyway, get this job, turns out not the best fit, because I had to commute 2 hours to get there each day and 2 hours home. I was living in Wollongong at the time, and this job was in like the CBD of Sydney. And I would leave in the morning, it would be dark, get on the train, well, drive to the train station, which is about 15 minutes, get on the train, there's an hour 45 plus another 10 minutes to walk to my office. I would be in this office building all day, eating my lunch at my desk, like not even seeing sunlight, because by the time it got to the end of the day and I left the office, it was dark again. And then so I get the train all the way back, get back to my house, and I'm like, the gym goes out the window because I'm like, do not feel motivated to do that. I'm just making something quick and easy for dinner, go to sleep. You wake up in the morning, you're back on the train going up to work again. And I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been working towards. Like all of these years that I've been working so hard, in my academic life to achieve this goal of working in corporate. And I'm there and I've achieved it. And I'm like, whoa, this is not it. To the point that 9 weeks into that job that I had, my body was so run down, so sick that I couldn't get out of bed. There was an entire week that I missed off work because I just couldn't move. And so I was just in bed, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything. And that was the moment, the darkness that arose that made me see this isn't the path, and there's something that needs to change here, and I need to rethink my entire life plan. Like, what am I even doing? And so that is when I realized that the stress on my body, like it just wasn't worth going through that. And especially the lesson had already kind of been percolating in the back of my mind that I didn't want to live a life of stress that came from the work that I do, because my dad, he passed away when I was 18 months old, and
Wow.
he passed away from cancer. And the cancer was proven scientifically to have proliferated in his body and gotten worse and worse because of the stress and pressure he was under in his job. And so
Wow.
he sought out all of the different healing modalities. He was doing Tai Chi and eating all the healthy food, and he had his own veggie patch. And, so he was already on that holistic health journey. And this was kind of like my moment that pushed me towards, well, I've got to start doing things differently as well. Otherwise, I'm just following, a path that I should already have the lesson from, because, my dad's already been through that. And yeah, so that was when I went into health and wellness and holistic health, fitness, and I started teaching that to university students because I didn't want them to get stressed and burn out. And obviously I knew so much about like the academic side of things. So I was like, it was just a logical kind of bring together the wellness stuff, bring together what I know about like studies. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was my first kind of step into entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, there we go. And I was doing like speaking gigs and conferences and, yeah, just teaching workshops for students. And that was my first taste of like earning my own money for myself based on what I was really passionate about.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's where it all kind of began for me. And then, following what's lighting me up, breadcrumb after breadcrumb, kind of has led me to where I am today.
I love that. I love that. And mate, like what awareness, because I mean, we look, back, decades, how many people are just trapped in that stressful cycle, and they have no awareness of it, and they, like, oh yeah, I am sick and now I've got an autoimmune disease, or I have this, ailment. And a lot of it does come from the pressures that society has created for two-income families to, get that 9 to 5 to earn the money to pay the mortgage or the rent. And not a lot of people even dare to dream that they can find something that they're passionate about or happy about and make an income off of that. It's just definitely not something that, it's obviously prevalent in our realms, but it's not really, discussed in school or any other places and spaces. So well done for you for finding that in a relatively young age and short space of time. Since then, though, from, that how long ago was that, Anna? How long ago did you?
That part of my journey would have been 10 years ago.
Yeah, beautiful. And what's been the biggest, like, death and rebirth since then? Like, what has been the next challenge that kind of really hit home? So that's a big, massive, like, yeah, the stress and the change of direction. What's been the next one? Because I feel like there's another one that's, really
There's always more.
Yeah.
And there is always going to be more, even when you do have self-awareness and when you're seeing obstacles as good. And because there's always like a next level in our becoming who we're truly here to be. And
Yes.
it's embracing like, oh, yay, like, I'm getting that next obstacle now because I'm ready to reveal that next, like, greatest version of myself. And something that I've struggled with over time is like, I feel like, the whole self-development, personal development, spiritual development industry can be so like self-focused. And, I ultimately, deep at my core, I just want to serve. Like, I want to help other people. And I'm like, I'm so like, focusing on myself and my own journey. Like, how does that, it just didn't marry up in my mind. And it was so funny because last week, this is actually a really recent thing. Last week I was in Brisbane and I was visiting my mum and my brother, and I went and saw my little niece and I got to go to her swimming lessons, and that was super cute and super fun. And she went up like a grade and she was like so excited and she got to ring a bell. And but anyway, so after that, after that, mum was like, oh, there's an antique store near here. And she like, that's her favorite thing to do on her birthday. She was like, I'm just going to go to all the antique stores. So she loves that. And she said there was one nearby, and it was like this massive warehouse, like so many wares, so many books, so many clothes, everything. And as I was wandering around, I was in there for about an hour, and right at the end, we were in like this little section with books and coffee cups and, just a random assortment of hats and bags. And there was just this one book that was sitting on the shelf. There was a series of books, but there was this one book that like took my attention. And I pulled that book out and I opened it up, and there was a place card in there, like, what would be sitting on the table for a wedding or something like that with someone's name on it? It said Anna. It had
Oh
my
my God.
name inside the book. And I was like, oh my gosh, what message does this book have for me? And I read the first, I bought it. It was only $5. It was great. But the first forward, like, of the book right at the start spoke about the fact that sometimes we feel like this journey, we're too self-focused rather than service-focused. And that actually that part is needed, because if we're not working through our own blocks, barriers, triggers, limiting beliefs, then we're not going to be able to serve the world on the greatest level that we're here to, in the way that we're truly here to impact. And I was like, oh, thank you. Finally, this has been reconciled in my mind. And yeah, it just took this random book in the random antique store that was like, Anna, pay attention to this. I literally have your name written on this book because you need to hear this message today. That's how it felt. And
so cool. And it is, they say, even in your darkest hours, if you can, I think it's Tony Robbins, if you can serve somebody else, if you can do something, one little thing for somebody else, it'll literally light your nervous system up, because that's what we're genuinely in human nature to do. We want to connect, and we do want to serve and help others. Like it's one of our core beliefs at our nature to help and, be in a community and be in that, family or tribe and help each other. And so, if you can do that on a daily basis, I have a lot of role models and mentors that I follow, and, it's why I do my lives or why I do this podcast, because I think, the struggles that I had, which were so different, I'm 43, bisexuality and drug addiction. It wasn't talked about when I was in my teens. There was no apps, there was no podcast, there was no anything. And so if I can bring some light to it, and even like the most recent stuff, heartaches and, relationship issues and infidelities and all these things that happen in life that people tend to not talk about because they're so deeply full of shame. That's why, I do this. And I love the fact that you want to serve too and help others with your story and your stuff, because if we have been through it, there's other people that have too. And so being able to just, be a voice for them, be a permission slip, be a mentor, that's awesome. So I'd love to know then, what is your message? Like, where do you feel like your mission to serve others is, apart from helping them find their passion and purpose? Like, what is the thing that you just light up doing yourself?
So eventually my journey, and, to answer your previous question as well, there was a moment when I'm kind of balancing my PhD with starting this new like speaking business as well. And then I was going through a bit of like a mental health struggle with things that were happening in my family, and my mum was going through some mental health stuff at the time as well, and I was helping to support her. And then my younger brother as well has a disability, autism and ASD, and so that's always been a little bit of a challenge. And there was kind of just lots of things coming to a head at the same time. And I was living with my boyfriend at the time in an apartment by the sea, and I would commute from there to my PhD each day. And then one day when I got home, he said to me that he didn't love me anymore. And my whole world, that I thought that was kind of the one part of my life that was like safe. Like that part sorted at least. Like even when I'm going through, and I'd been to see a therapist that day, so I was not in the like best mental state. And yeah, got home to that message, and then that then kind of pulled the rug out from under me again. And I ended up quitting my PhD, leaving the job that I had at the university, moving out of the apartment, moving back home to Wagga Wagga. So I would think I was 26 at the time. And so even like the shame around, you know, moving back in with my parents. And then when I moved back home, it was only within 3 months that my parents also separated. So this is my stepdad and my mum. They then separated. And, you know, that like my stepdad had been my dad since 4 years old. So, you know, big part of my life. And yeah, so then that happened. They are now divorced. And then I was just like, it was that reevaluation stage again. It was like, where am I headed? Like, you know, I'm not at the university now. It's not like I'm speaking and doing my job there. You know, where am I going? And it was at that point in time where I was into like wellness and holistic health, and I had come across essential oils, and I was using them, you know, to replace my skincare products and my toothpaste and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So then I knew that there was a business associated with that, and it felt like it had a lot of heart behind it. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to go fully into that. And I started traveling around Australia and doing essential oil workshops. And I met some of my best friends.
I first met you. I think that's when I first met you. You were doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And so I met some of like the most amazing people, some of my best friends through doing that. And I was, you know, at that point in time, that was my passion. Like I was so passionate about, you know, people getting rid of chemicals and toxins and just living the healthiest, most natural lifestyle that they could, because I knew that that was part of, you know, stress that people had in their lives and on their bodies. Like they could replace that and not have that same stress that they're exposing themselves to. And so it was kind of like helping people with stress on that physical, like chemical level. Whereas I feel like today I'm working with people and their stress on that like emotional and spiritual level. And the way that that happened was because I came across, on all of my travels around Australia, somebody mentioned human design. And I was like, I looked up my chart, and it looked really confusing. I had no idea like what any of it meant. Apparently I was a projector, had splenic authority, and what it spoke about was the best thing that you can do, rather than just like trust it or take it for face value, is experiment with it and see how it actually lands in your body, like see how it actually works for you. And then you can decide for yourself, like try it for a week. And if it's like taking you in the right direction, it feels really good, then keep going with it. And if it doesn't, then, you know, just leave it to the side, like not for you. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment with this. So there's this period of time where I'm like making all of my decisions using, in human design, I use my spleen, which is basically meaning trusting my instincts. It's like in the moment, awareness of what's the healthiest option for me. That's basically what splenic means. And so I'm trusting my instincts. I have this trip to America planned, and to go to a conference for doTERRA, and I'd been to the same conference the year before, and I'd gotten so much out of it, had the best time, met Hugh Jackman, and so it was just this amazing experience. So I was like, yes, I'm going back again. That was amazing. And it was over the dates of my birthday as well. And so I was like, this is the best way to celebrate my birthday. And so, yeah, at the same time as, you know, that trip is coming up, I'm doing this experiment with my human design. And my friend reaches out to me and she's like, oh, Anna, I'm going on this retreat. Like, I'd really love for you to come with me. Do you want to come on this retreat with me? And automatically my instinct was like, yes. Like, I absolutely do. And then she told me the dates of the retreat, and it was the exact dates of my America trip. Now, remember earlier I was saying how I really valued my logical, rational mind. And so this is where it jumps in. And it's like, well, no, you've already bought your ticket to go to the USA. It makes sense to just follow through with what you plan to do. Well, the pros and cons list was like telling me like to go to America. But I was like, oh, if I'm really committing, I said I was committed to this human design experiment, and I was going to trust whatever my instincts told me so I can figure out whether this human design thing works or not. And I got a very clear yes to going on this retreat. And so on my birthday, rather than flying off to the USA, I flew to Townsville, like far north Queensland. And when I got off the plane, I arrived for the retreat a few days early, so that I could celebrate my birthday somewhere new and different. And so arrived a few days before the retreat, and the person who picked me up from the airport I'd never met before, first time ever meeting this man, it was Ben Clark. And that was the kind of sign that I needed when it came to human design, that, wow, I can really trust this, because as you would know, 5 years later, we're still together, we are creating amazing things in the world, and, we have an amazing life.
Ready to transform your passion into a profession? There's a link in the show notes to book a 30-minute Zoom call with me. It's just a short conversation to see if the program aligns with you. What we're really looking for is to determine how you can fulfill your goals and start your own journey as a kids coach today. Visit thekidscoach.com.au booking page, the Kids Coach with a Z, to build a business that's not only successful, but is enriching and heartfelt. It changes lives, and it starts with you.
The day that I arrived was actually, my birthday. It was also his birthday. And so it was like this really clear sign from the universe that was like, pay attention, like, look at this, don't miss this. We're trying to show you something here. And, we joke now that we both got a really great birthday present that year. And now it's kind of like Christmas morning on our birthdays, because it's like you roll over and it's like, happy birthday, and the other person's like, happy birthday. So
it's the cutest thing ever. And you guys are an amazing, beautiful couple to witness and have seen, your growth and what you are creating in this world. And I love that, trusting your instincts and following human design led you to that path. So many people wouldn't even know what that is. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're just so unconditioned to following our intuition, or let alone researching human design, or something that's not being taught in our education systems or not taught at university. People will be like, what are you on about? What is splenic? Following that. Or for me, it's my soul. Like, I can feel my yes and no's in my soul. And don't get me wrong, there's been plenty of times I've heard my no and I've done it anyway, because that's where my addiction started, and that's where different places and got into bad situations. But now I 100% listen to my yes, because it does guide me to the most beautiful choices and life that I have. I'd love to know, how do you then feel your yes? Explain to people how you knew that was your yes. So if anybody's feeling these things coming up in the universe, or getting these messages, and they're like, oh, I want to meet my Ben, or I want that, life for me. How did you know it, Anna? Like, how did you feel it?
That's a really great question. I feel like multiple things I want to share. First thing is, when you're first starting to listen to your intuition, it's going to be like a little whisper, because it's kind of like a child, the child that's been coming to you and telling you the answer, and you've just been saying, go away, be quiet, go away. Yeah, like, I'm listening to my mind.
I'm busy now, off you go.
Yes, yeah. And so it's like we've ignored it so many times that it's like learned not to speak. It's learned that it's not valued. And so when we start to listen to it, it might start like quite quiet. So don't feel like, oh my God, I'm not feeling the full body yes, like I'm not connected to my intuition, like I'll never be able to. It's like it's going to start really subtle, and it might be as simple as, you're walking down the street and you always go straight, but then there's this little nudge, this little voice that says, go right, go right. And then instead of going like, no, I'm just going straight, and like using that logical, rational mind, it's like, oh, well, may as well go right and just see what magic there might be going that way, or what potential obstacle you may have avoided by going straight. You don't know. And so that's like examples where you can just play a little bit with starting to trust your intuition, but it will get louder and louder over time, like as you're listening to it and as you're valuing it. But back in that moment where I felt that yes, I was thinking about how when we're making decisions using our mind, it can be quite muddied in that there's, societal conditioning, there's limiting beliefs, when I'm creating this pros and cons list, what's creating that list is my brain that is limited by those limiting beliefs, the societal conditioning, what's happened in the past and how has that played out, what will people think, and just like these barriers that we're creating in our own mind. And the difference when you're listening to your intuition, or as you said, listening to your soul, is that your soul knows all of the expansive possibilities that are available to you, whereas your mind is limited. Your mind is limited by those things that I just shared, whereas your soul is, even if it's unexplainable. And I think this is a really good tip. It's like, generally, if it's your intuition guiding you towards something, rather than a fear or limiting belief, if it's unexplainable. So if there's something that you're like, oh, that's a no for me, but you can relate that no to the fact that you're scared of something, there's a fear, there's a limiting belief that arises around that, then it may not really be a true no. That no is coming up because the limiting belief has come in, the fear has come in to distract you from something that actually your soul would be open to. And so you'll be able to feel more of that yes when we have the self-awareness to identify, oh, this is only a no because I'm a little bit scared. Like I'm a little bit uncertain. I'm a little bit confused. I don't know how exactly this would play out. And so that's why if something's unexplainable, but you just feel that pull towards it, then it's most likely your intuition. And this is where we practice listening to that time and time again so that it can get stronger and stronger. And then you start to live a life led by your soul, led by your intuition, rather than, led by the mental chatter that can potentially limit us. And your life will go in a different direction. You'll be more in alignment with your true path and your soul purpose and what you're truly here to do, rather than being, distracted by side quests.
Yeah, 100%. I really do believe in that, and thank you for pointing that out, because so many of us do stay safe. One of my beautiful students, when she very first signed up with me, was like, oh, I feel nauseous, I feel scared, that means it's a yes for me. And I was like, wow, that's so different to my yes, but so beautiful, because she's like, when I know it's a challenge, when I know that this is something for me, my whole body goes, you're not, like almost you're not ready, you're going to be sick, you're nauseous, and she knows her fear's coming up, but it's a full soul yes for her. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. For me, like it exactly as you've described, it's got stronger and stronger when I've trusted. But even in my addiction days, I knew that I wanted to get sober. So that was that whisper, that was that that thing. And then when somebody said to me about hypnotherapy, it kind of just is like, that's the thing. And then I met this guy and he looked at me and I got this tingle, and I just was like, oh my God. And I didn't know what hypnosis was. I thought he was doing it with his eyes. I was like, don't look at me. And then those guys, and then, it took another full year after that before I studied, and my mum and dad had moved in with us and they were helping us financially. And I just wanted to do this course with like Paula Licio. And my mum's like, she's an accountant, and she's like, where is this $100 a week coming from, Mum? And I just knew. I said, I don't know. I did beauty first. I was a beautician. I was in that world. And I was like, I just know, I can't prove it, but I just know I'll make that $100 a week. I have to do this course. And so listening to that, yes, like it just kept coming back in life. And, following that to this day, it has just served me so well. Like, even when some of these conversations, the podcasts scare me, like I never know where it's going to go. I just know it's a yes. Like I just know I have to put it out there. The same thing with, working with kids. When I first started, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, but it's a yes, like, let's go, and trusting that, that there is that faith, that download, that whatever you believe in will come to you at those times of need to guide you to the right people, to the right resources, to the right job, to the right humans that we're meant to connect with. And I really do believe in those energetics of it all. So yeah.
And that's
For
a
me,
question I have for you is like, so I feel like observing you and your journey from what I've seen over the last, 5 years, when you stepped into the kids coach as a brand, I just felt this energy behind it, and that it was like really you stepping into yourself and your worth and your value and making that impact on a larger scale. And of course, I know that if you've made this big move, this big shift, there must have been something just before that that was potentially challenging, obstacle, darkness, like something that you were going through that then led to the idea, the spark, the passion for you to launch into this. So can you share about that?
So for me, honestly, it was relationships. So I hadn't been listening to my intuition. Abs and I had gone through an infidelity, and my last podcast was Cara West, and I did allude to Abby jumping on a podcast, and she told me last night she's not, but one day she might. She's okay with me sharing this stuff because it is. I always get her consent, by the way, is when you hear me talk about Abs. But that was probably the darkest night of my soul, was having something that I was totally out of control of. When I self-sabotage, whether it's with food or Netflix or drugs in my past, that was something I was controlling. That was something I was doing. If I was behaving badly or I was doing something, when something happens that is out of your control, and, I did, and I'm so grateful that we went through this because it's brought us so much deeper and understanding her journey and the why. But having my own coach and healing myself, because I felt like I was dealing with it, but then I wasn't. And then having another coach, and I was just like, I don't trust myself. Like, I've got these addictive personalities, and then I can have people in my life that I love. And this is not just her, but other people as well that do things that hurt me. And I was like, I just don't trust human beings. And I was going through this dark part, and working with my coach, he's like, you just have to keep working on yourself so you're the happiest and healthiest person you can be. So it doesn't matter what the universe throws at you, you're so capable to deal with it. And I was like, and it kind of made sense as to why these, why I keep asking for these lessons and these, hurts and heartbreaks and confusing times. It's for my lesson to learn. And then for me, I am a teacher. I'm innately a teacher. So if I go through something, I genuinely want to share it so that other people don't feel alone. And so because our relationship has gone from strength to strength because of this and the deep conversations, we don't hide anything from each other now, which is really hard to do if you haven't come from that place and space or had that safety in another human being. And because we did that, my coach is like, you're so diverse, Nichole. Like, you've worked through like thousands of hours of coaching. You do relationship coaching, sex coaching, kids coaching, family coaching. Like, you have done a lot. Like, what lights you up though? What do you absolutely love? Because I'm a great entrepreneur. I've had businesses since 2009 for, over 20 years. And when I nutted down and when I really found it, it's like every time it's kids. Like, I was so lonely at 7, and I changed schools and I masked, and I, now know I'm ADHD and dyslexic too. Like, that's huge. So I had all these things go on for me that I never could quite put a pin on or quite understand that it was okay to be Nichole. Like, and then, this, bisexuality, there's so many confusing things that just make me uniquely me. And it's just like, now in my 40s and then in my 30s, I was learning all this stuff. And as a parent, I was like, kids need to know it too. Like, they were so disregarded. Off you go be a kid. Don't worry about it. Yet they are little human beings going through confusing times themselves, loneliness, depression, anxiety, all these big emotions. And yet a lot of humans aren't, adult humans, trusted people aren't seeing that. And it's not to blame them. And every time I worked with a kid, I came up with this modality that they had to pick us. Like, it doesn't matter if they're paying or NDIS or whoever's paying the parents. Like, I play this little game that I have to get the job. Like, you get to interview me. And it doesn't matter if they're 2 or nonverbal. I get on the floor until they come to me. It's not like when they're older, they sit in the chair, or even on Zooms, they still pick me, because I give them that choice, that empowering choice of, I'm your person if you want me to be. And they always pick me. And then I got out the way, and my intuition would always come up with a game to play with them. And I'd use hypnosis, meditation, art therapy, games, you name it, something would just come through. And that every time, my whole nervous system, when a kid picks me, I cry. I don't care about the money. I don't care about that act of service of playing with a child and deeply seeing them and them feeling so safe with me is honestly what I'm put on this earth to do. And that's where the kids coach came from. It's like, well, use everything you've been through. You've had this diverse life. You've, known from a young age that you didn't quite fit the mold and you wanted help to express that. And every single human goes through, and you would know that deep-seated feeling of, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not good enough, does somebody love me? But having another human being say, oh my God, Anna, I love you. Like, you're just so beautiful. Thank you for your message. But if Ben says that now because you've known him for 5 years, or your mum says that to you, or somebody that you know for a really long time, you're like, yeah, thanks. But if another human that you've just picked can deeply see your soul and see the best in you that you sometimes can't see yourself, it lights you up on a whole different frequency. And that frequency that I share with kids, you can't replace. And so for me, it's not something special that Nichole's doing. It's just something that I kind of fell into and the universe showed me. So it created this space of like, I can show others how to deeply connect with our youth. So perhaps there won't be so many issues and stuff later on in life. Like, perhaps they'll know how to ask for help. Perhaps they won't, get full blown into drug addiction or, bad relationships, because they know at a young age that they are worthy, that they are lovable, that they're uniquely okay to be themselves, and that there are safe people out there to ask help from. And so that's when the Kids Coach really became a brand, because I realized it was way bigger than myself. And, I went full in with that and created some, certifications and programs with it. But literally, I believe that if I hadn't had all of those diverse things happen to me, I wouldn't be the great kids coach that I am, because I wouldn't have had so much life experience. I can't relate to, all different people on all different levels. So I'm super grateful for all of them, but fuck me, they were some challenging times to get there. And so that real, I've been back to other jobs in between, business and stuff. But when I come back to what I'm meant to do, and even this year when I was at burnout and I was like, I've created this business and I actually don't know if I want to show up for everybody, I had to come back to my coach and really work on what lights me up. And I'm like, no, being a kids coach, being of service, I genuinely want to jump out of bed for. And so it is coming back to that passion and purpose. Like, if I can find that light within me, then I'm okay. Doesn't mean I'm perfect every day, because I'm goddamn not. But if I come back to that place in my heart that lights me up, it's definitely letting kids pick me and helping them find their little light up inside them.
And as you were sharing that as well, as you spoke about kids and, your connection with them, you would smile. Like, you would light up in your energy as you spoke into that. So I feel like that's a clue as well for anyone listening as well. If you're like, well, I don't know what my purpose is, I don't know what my passion is, pay attention to those things that you speak about with such joy, that do light you up, that feel fun, that feel exciting. What's your human design, by the way? Like, are you a manifesting generator?
Manifesting generator.
Yeah. As you were speaking, I was feeling manifesting generator energy. And how you were speaking about how you're multi-passionate as well. And I think that's the other thing, is that, we've kind of in society been indoctrinated that there's this one way to do things, and finding out our human design can actually also guide us to, for example, a manifesting generator has probably been told across their life to just focus on one thing. And it's like actually the worst advice for a manifesting generator. The manifesting generator is like pulling together all of the different things that they've learned across their life and pivoting to put it into, like, bring it all into one. And I feel like that's exactly what you've done through the Kids Coach. It's like, all of your different modalities, everything, all the lessons that you've learned have all come together into one. And I feel like that's what actually makes it so potent and strong and impactful, is that it's got this foundation of all of your lessons and learnings. And so, yeah, it's in alignment with your human design. So it makes sense that it works. And so this is why human design can be so powerful, when we have that understanding of how we innately work on a soul level as well.
It is. It's a beautiful place to play and have kind of guidance from as well. So for those with those logical minds, like, it really does help, because you've got that kind of map, that game plan. Like, well, how do I know a soul? How do I know my spiritual side? Like, human design's actually like almost like a, I don't know, do you think it's like that bridge? Like, it's almost like that academic kind of, like, if you've got an analytical mind, I can understand this and then bridge to my soul kind of connection. I feel like it is. I think it's like a really good gateway to pick anybody that's trying to navigate or find a little more purpose, happiness in their life. It can just give you that kind of understanding.
And, you know, one of the things that really attracted me towards human design was the fact that there was a mix between ancient wisdom and modern science. And it brings those modalities together, and modalities that I was already looking at when it comes to ancient wisdom, like astrology and Kabbalah and the Chinese I Ching, and, you know, bringing the chakra system as well, like things that I already knew a little bit about. And it's like, whoa, it brings it all together into one system, as well as like quantum physics and genetics and biochemistry into, you know, this one system. I was like, oh, that is really intriguing. That's really interesting. And understanding that I was a projector, it's about me following those fascinations. And so I was absolutely fascinated by it. So I knew that that was something that was in alignment for me. So it gives you those little clues along the way as well. It's like, yes, this is something for me to lean into more, and you don't have to question it so much. I feel like I used to label myself like such an indecisive person. It's like someone would ask me what I want for dinner, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, you choose. Like, and it was just like, I would get like almost like paralyzed by having to make decisions. And now it's like, it's so easy for me to make decisions and to know that, like, I have so much certainty that I'm always heading in the right direction. And everything that has happened up until now, like, the past is always perfect. And it's always just like about choosing in that moment, like, what is that next step? What is that next step? And when you can hear your intuition and trust in that, it's like you always know that you're just on path and in alignment and going in the right direction, even if there's an obstacle, and even if there's painful things, and even when it's challenging, because you're like, whoa, this is really good. Like, I'm about to unveil that next version of myself right now. And so it's just this whole different perspective to have on life, and it's so much more freeing.
100%. And on that, I've already just thought of two people that I absolutely have to refer to you. So if anybody's looking for Anna's human design courses and products and just heard beautiful information, it'll all be under the link in the bio section as well. We are almost up for time, so I just would be mindful we might have to do a part 2 and really dive deep into some human design, because I think that'd be really powerful for some of our listeners to go even deeper than just their callings and intuition and passion. But is there anything that you'd love to share with the listeners? Like, what, like, if there was one thing that they could do perhaps on a daily basis or this week, what would be your thing? What would you, like, just something little that someone can do to...
I feel like coming back to, like, what is it for you right now that is your biggest challenge that you're going through? And because, you know, we're humans, we're human beings here having this human experience, and there's always going to be something that brings up that emotion or pain or frustration, or this is really annoying. And rather than looking at, you know, why is this happening to me? Why do I deserve this? Why would they do that to me? You know, that kind of mentality. Instead, switching it back and knowing that at some level you've created this for yourself, which is, you are so smart. You are so amazing, because you know that on the other side of that is going to be that next level for you, that new embodiment of who you're truly here to be. And you've given yourself this gift of this challenge, this obstacle, so that you can awaken that within yourself. And so I feel like approaching anything that happens this week or something that you're currently going through with that mentality, thanking yourself, being grateful for the obstacle, the challenge, and seeing it as really good, because you're just on the precipice. You're just on the edge of something new and amazing and exciting that's about to reveal itself to you.
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. It does hit home for even some of the little things that I go through, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm creating this. It's all part of the process. Trust that process. Have a beautiful little, change of perspective on it. Like, be curious about it. Yeah, I love that, Anna. Thank you so much for being here. That went so quickly. I could honestly chat for ages. Yeah. Thank you for helping me dive into my passion and purpose and just relive that as well, because I do sometimes forget like how I even started and how I got here. And those like you said, breadcrumbs, as hard as they were to start with, they're very easy to follow now. And I'm super grateful for the life that I get to lead and the people like you that are in it. And yeah.
Absolutely.
So that'll do us for this week. Well, this podcast. But if you have any other questions for us as well, I'm always open to questions and specific topics. So like, share, subscribe.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.